Hey everyone, welcome back to Tech World with Sahana. So, by the title, we are going to discuss about DevOps Roadmap. But let me first tell you why this roadmap is the roadmap for you. So, first, let's be honest. You already have a lot of DevOps roadmap. But the problem with those roadmaps are they tell you about the technologies like go ahead and learn Docker, go ahead and learn Kubernetes. But do they actually mention what exactly to learn? What exactly you would be asked in an interview? What are the questions I should be focusing on? Nobody tells us that, right? So, let me give you a short story of me. So, when I was learning DevOps, I had this DevOps roadmap and I learned about Kubernetes commands, right? And I put it in my CV that I know about Kubernetes commands. And the interviewer asked me, so how would you check the status of a pod? I said I would either use kubectl get or kubectl describe pod. And he said, okay, and what it will show you? I said, it will show me the status of a pod. He said, okay, I get that, but what is the status of a pod? What exactly it will list down? And then I was thinking, I don't know what the output is going to look like. I just know the commands. So that is where our focus should be. Learn one technology, learn only maybe two topics from there, three topics from there, or five topics from there. But expertise in those topics and list only those topics in your CV and smartly answer that this is what I know, right? So this is why this roadmap will be the roadmap for you. I'm not only going to list down the technologies, I'm also going to list down the questions that you should be focusing on. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, first thing first, let's have a look at what are the questions we should be focusing on in introduction to DevOps or basics of DevOps. Instead of learning what is DevOps, focus on why was DevOps required in the first place. Before DevOps, all the companies, organizations were using a model called waterfall models. What was the drawback of that model? That we needed DevOps in the first place. That comes down to our question, what is DevOps? When I say learn what is DevOps, don't just learn a definition for the sake of it. Focus on what does that actually mean. If you learn a buzzword like collaboration, bringing the team together, focus on what does that actually mean. Next question is what is the life cycle or phases of DevOps? Here you should focus on the names of phases definitely, but also learn what DevOps actually do in these phases. Okay. So the next topic we have is life cycle or phases of DevOps. In this we will be learning about various phases of DevOps next. And for each phase we will definitely cover all the questions that will be required and all the technologies you need to learn. Phase 1, planning. In this phase, you are actually planning what will be required from each team. Let's take an example. Your application is fairly new and you do not have a calling feature in your application. Now you want to implement that calling feature. So, this is the exact phase where you would be actually planning all these things. Like what developers team is going to do, what DevOps team is going to do, database team, networking team, any team that you can think of. Every team will be planning what they actually have to do, what they will be required to do, which technologies they are going to use, what pipeline they want to build, right? So all these questions will be answered in this planning phase. Now let's check out the questions that you should be covering. What kind of tasks go into planning phase in DevOps? What does a DevOps engineer do in this planning phase? Learn about two tools in this planning phase, Jira and Confluence. Jira we mostly use, suppose you're working on a task and you definitely have to showcase it to your management what you are doing with some maybe points like two, three, four, according to the tasks you have, right? So this is where you'll create like a ticket or a story where your efforts will be monitored. Then we have Confluence. Confluence is like documentation tool where you will be actually documenting some of the things, like you're working on a new thing, so you'll document it, or maybe some repetitive task, you'll document it and keep it in conference. So these are the tools. You don't have to go much in depth about it, just you should know like what are these tools, and when do you use Jira, and when you would use conference. Phase 2, coding. In this phase, developers, DevOps, database, networking, every team that you can think of actually works towards their goal that they want to achieve. Like developers team will be writing the code, DevOps team will be focusing mostly on creating the CI/CD pipelines or writing configuration. If you are using Jenkins, you'll be actually writing the Jenkins file. If you are using Kubernetes, you'll be writing the YAML files. If you are, then you need to create your Docker file. So these sorts of tasks will be performed, but to perform these sorts of tasks, let's see the questions you need to prepare, and also the tools that you need to focus on. What kind of tasks go into coding phase for DevOps? Like, if DevOps engineers are not coding actually in coding phase, what are they actually doing in this phase 2? You should know about it. Next thing is tools. You should learn about Git and GitHub. My suggestion would be just download Git in your laptop and create an account in GitHub. Now, create some files, maybe just a simple text file, and push it into the central repository, your GitHub. Now, to do this, you definitely have to learn some of the commands. And these 7 commands that I'm going to now show you, just learn about them, and that will be it. These are the commands that you would actually use in your day to day, even developers. Git clone, branch, checkout, status, add, commit, push. These are the 7 commands. Just focus on them and you're done with commands. But when I say learn commands, again, do not just focus on memorizing the commands. See the output, what it would show you. When you run the command, what actually happened when you run that command? You have to know about these things as well. And another question, how many types of branches can be created, and what are its use cases? Like we have a main or master branch, we have develop branch, feature branch, release branch, branch, and bug fix branch. What are these? When do we use each one? Learn about these. Phase 3 and 4, build and testing. This is your start of CI pipeline. Okay, so your focus should be here because you're now starting the pipelines, right? So you need to know about these small stages or steps that you should also focus on while building your CI/CD pipeline. But I have kept, these are not that broader topic, okay? So I have kept this so short and simple and very minimal questions for you to be able to complete in like 2 to 3 days, maybe not more than that it will take to complete these phases, okay? So let's check out the questions now. What are the tasks performed in building phase? You definitely have to know what do you actually have to achieve in this building phase. Without that, whether whatever technologies you are using, whatever like scripting language you are using, you cannot achieve it until you know what is the end, what is your end goal for building. So you definitely have to know this. Next, learn about what is Maven, architecture of Maven, life cycle of Maven, and also, very important, learn about pom.xml file. Like take a sample pom.xml file and see what is there in that pom.xml file. It's very easy to understand. Once you see it, you would know what are these components, and that is it. That is what you should focus on. You do not have to actually write the pom.xml, but you should understand what are the things you will find it here. Because suppose, like I said, this is a start of CI. Now suppose your CI is failing in this start stage only. You should know the step that it's failing, where you would find the details for that in your Bitbucket or in your GitHub, whatever you are using. Suppose it fails for any version. You know that version would be available in pom.xml, so you can go ahead and check that pom.xml and find the root cause of that particular issue. Then you can go ahead and change it, or developer can go ahead and change it. It varies from organization to organization. Then learn these 9 commands: mvn, hyphen v, clean, compile, package, install, test, verify, deploy. These 9 commands are something that you should learn end to end. When I say end to end about commands, it means that don't just learn it, understand what it exactly do. What are the tasks performed in testing phase? What is JUnit, Selenium, SonarQube? When do we use each of these tools? Or how to integrate it? You can be using any other tools for your CI, like suppose you are using Jenkins, you should definitely know how to integrate it. And that is it. Phase 5 and 6, release and deploy. I'm going to explain it both together. Why? Because this is almost the end of CI, start of CD, and once you complete these both phases, you'll be done with your CI CD. This is going to be a big phase because I'm combining both the phases together. Take your time while learning this phase because this is where most of your questions will be asked. Integrate with any CI CD tool. That means, let's take an example. You are using Jenkins, right? Now, when you have Jenkins, you definitely have to integrate it with your version control system where your code is kept, where your configurations are kept. So, you need to know how to integrate your version control system with your CI tool or any automation language that you are using. How do we do that? That is the part you should focus on. Next is learn about environments. This is not something that many people talk about, but you should know what are these environments. Dev, SIT, UAT, pre-prod, prod. These are called environments. Believe me, if you talk about these as a fresher or as a job switcher in your interview, interviewers are going to love it because this is what you work on these things on a day to day basis. Once they see that you actually understand what are these and you do have a practical understanding, maybe not a practical experience, but a practical understanding, they are going to love this. Next is learn scripting, Bash or Python. Why I said learn scripting? Suppose you do not have Jenkins or any other CI tool, you are not using it. You can do all this complete step with just scripting or automation, just with Bash or Python or any other scripting language that you know. And interviewers doesn't focus on only one scripting language. They're going to ask you a question on the one that you have actually mentioned in your CV. So just go for one, mention that. Okay. Next is learn to write the complete CI pipeline with scripting. Okay, so this is the one question that I got a lot from that reel, that what type of scripting should we actually practice? I think some of them I have already mentioned in that reel. Here are some more list. So building the complete CI with scripting. What are the steps you should focus on? Integrate version control, integrate build tool to compile the code, integrate unit testing framework, integrate code quality tool, package the Java application into .jar or .var, create your Docker image if you are using a container-based deployment, push Docker image to container registry like Docker Hub or Artifactory, archive your build artifacts or integrate a notification system. Suppose any of these steps fails, right? You want to get a notification via email or all the teams want to get a notification via email. You can even automate that part. Next we have is learn to write complete CD pipeline with scripting. Let's check out the steps. Pull the artifactory. Now in the CI we have pushed our artifactory to a Docker Hub or a artifactory, right? So now pull that artifact .jar or var from artifactory or a Docker image, whatever you have, deploy to application server. What it could be, a Kubernetes or a Tomcat, anything it could be. Configure environment variables and properties, perform post deployment like smoke test, integrate notification system via email or alerts, anything that you have in mind, implement rollback strategy. Now suppose your deployment fails, you want to roll back to the previous version or to the previous jar. How do you do that? These all steps can be automated with just one scripting language. Let's go back a bit on phase 2. What DevOps actually code? Here, you're, like I said, you're actually going to write either a Docker file or a Kubernetes file, configuration file, right? So let's check out the questions that you need to prepare in Docker and Kubernetes. Docker. What is Docker? Why is Docker required in DevOps? Architecture of Docker, like Docker daemon, Docker client, Docker images, container, registries. What are the core components of Docker? Images, containers, Docker file, volume, network, etc. Till here, we had the theory part. Now let's get into some practicals. Docker commands. Learn the commands with versions and help, image management, container management, Docker file build, and custom image. These are the commands you should be focusing on. Now, in each of these topics, we have a lot of commands. Remember again, whenever you are learning commands, don't just learn what are the commands. Focus on what the output looks like. Also, focus on what it's actually doing. Okay. Last topic from Docker is write Docker file. Very important and not much people talk about it. Now, Kubernetes. What is Kubernetes and why is Kubernetes required in DevOps? Next, we have architecture of Kubernetes. Learn about the components of this architecture like master node, worker node, kube API server, etcd, controller manager, scheduler, kubelet, kube proxy, and container runtime. What are these each components? I have also covered them in many reels and also in one of my video. So I'll put the link in the description. If you want to learn from there, go ahead. If you have any other resource, feel free to go there as well. Next is what are the components of Kubernetes and write YAML files. Pod, replicas, deployment, service, config map, secrets, volume, namespace, ingress. See, when you're starting with DevOps and you're learning Kubernetes, do not focus on like writing big YAML files, right? Take a basic one. You'll get it in the Kubernetes official website only. Go there, check out what each component means. In that official document, you'll not only have that sample YAML file, you'll also have a definition like what each component is. Learn about these things. Next is Kubernetes commands like version, help, pod management, deployment management, service, networking, namespace, resource, logs, debugging. Learn the commands. Again, do not just learn it, but see what the output is going to look like. Phase 7 and 8, operate and monitor. In this phase, we are mostly going to learn about the questions that a SRE engineer should be focusing on. Very important phase for a SRE engineer. Why I'm saying SRE and not DevOps? Because see, if when we talk about core DevOps, we are mostly done from when we completed the CD. This is where you operate and monitor, means you check how your application is performing in production. You monitor the things, you see what's alerts you are getting on a regular basis, and you automate them, or you find any repetitive task, you can go ahead and automate them with your scripting language or with any tools that you'll be using to monitor, right? So all these questions that you need to focus on, but let's focus on the questions. But yes, this step is optional, so if you have time, definitely go for it. Understand what happens in this phase 7 and 8, operate phase after the deployment. Why is the operate phase important in DevOps? What is Splunk? Now, Splunk is a tool we use mostly for monitoring. So you can learn from that. Like we can use some, it kind of query that we can search how many errors we are getting from what time till what time we are getting, so it helps us in monitoring. But and this is the most used and also most easy one to learn for your monitoring. And why use it for monitoring and logging? Learn how to send logs from application to Splunk, search, filter, and visualize logs in Splunk. Create dashboards and alerts in Splunk for your application. Monitor application errors, latency, traffic trends. Use Splunk for root cause analysis, incident review. You can also achieve this all steps with scripting as well. So that is why scripting and automation is so important in this DevOps. We are done with the roadmap, but here are few important points for your CV. Do not just bombard your CV with all the technologies that we have discussed right now. Learn one technology, and I can guarantee you that will give you a job, but learn them end to end. Suppose you are going for Kubernetes, right? So, if you learn all these questions that I have listed down, right, you can definitely get a job easily as a Kubernetes administrator. Suppose you learn to automate the complete CI CD pipeline with a scripting language. You can definitely get a job as an automation engineer. So, learn each technology one by one and then mention them in your CV and just list down the points that you have actually studied. Do not just include any point that you want just for the sake of it so that you'll get a call and you'll get a job. Because what's the point of adding 10 points and then when you are asked a question on that you cannot answer? Instead, list point maybe one or two things that you have studied and just list them down, and when you're asked a question on those topics you will be able to answer them. I'm going to share a PDF file for this DevOps roadmap in my LinkedIn profile, and once it's published I'm also going to share the link in the description. So that is it for today, and I hope this roadmap helps you in your DevOps journey.